Hello and welcome to the
Call the
East
meeting to order.
Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Okay, call the meeting to order right now. Let's pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start over with Dave. Introduce yourself. And what role you have in this.
Dave Keens, Fire Chief of Lafayette Fire Company, and I am an alternate for the Lafayette Fire Company. I am standing in for Jason Weiler, who is the Secretary for the Emergency Services this evening.
Thank you.
Jerry Sherman, Whitmer Fire Company.
John Petersheim, and citizen rep.
Mike Thornton, Board of Supervisors Rep.
Eric Bergstrom, Citizen Rep Lafayette, and also Chair of the Board.
Paul Fisher, Burton Hands, primary rep.
Dave River, Fire Company.
Also have, you want to go? Yeah.
East Lampeter Township.
Ralph Hutchison, Township Manager.
Okay, we have Zoom people. Could you introduce yourselves?
Susan Yoder, Citizen Rep.
Melanie McHenry, Citizen Rep for Ronks.
Susie Sutton, community member.
Okay. And since Susie introduced herself, let's just quickly go around the room. Introduce yourself and who you're with. Start over there.
Benjamin Bond, I'm in Fire Company.
Yes, and Fire Company.
Tyler Griffith, Hand Fire Company.
Gerald Peterson, Deputy Chief, and Fire Company.
Steve from Stolz, Assistant Chief.
Lavelle Weiler, Hand Fire. Tom Boyer, Chief, also the alternate rep for the ENC.
Go back here in the corner.
Matthew Fisher, Hand Fire Company.
Dan J. Fisher, Hand Fire Company.
Lonnie Kaufman, hand.
Arlen Miller, Hand Fire Company.
Lance Roy, Hand Fire Company. And Fisher, Hand Fire Company.
Tim Moore would be there.
Nate Church, Ronks 5.
Thank you. At the end of the meeting, there will be an opportunity for public comment. So if you have a public comment at the end of the meeting, just introduce yourself again and then make your comment. So we'll go from there. Okay. Approval of minutes for May 18th. We have a copy of the meeting minutes that Jason did. Any questions, concerns, any changes, any problems with them? He sent them out earlier, so we had a chance to read them.
Make a motion, we accept them.
Have a motion? Do I have a second? Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Vote. Okay, good. Let's go into old business. Report from fire apparatus replacement committees, hand in hand.
Hey, I don't know if we go through the formal presentation now, I guess.
Yeah, let's do.
Great time. So as you've noticed, there's quite a few guys here from our fire company, and that's because I invited them to come out here this evening. Hopefully that's all right. They support our apparatus committee, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity for them to get a little firsthand experience with the ESC. And so, yeah, appreciate you guys coming out.
Do they know how the equipment operates?
I think for the most part, they're pretty familiar, yeah, with our apparatus plan. I mean, maybe not all the nuts and bolts of it, but yeah, I would say in general, they're pretty well informed of that, so.
4 times a year we meet, 4 times, right? 4 times a year, 5 times?
6 times a month, yeah.
And the groups, the 4 fire companies work together on looking at equipment and then, placing equipment, replacement plan in place, and each fire company participates in that. So
Yeah, so we've been working on this apparatus replacement of our engine for probably the last year and a half now, I think, something like that. These guys have been meeting very frequently. I don't know what they've been averaging, probably once a week or every other week. More than, no, a lot more than that the last couple of months, trying to pull this thing together. And so I have here tonight, Ephraim, I think, who's a co-chairman of the committee, and Jerry, who's the other co-chair. And then between the two of them, and I think Lonnie, I'm not sure which of you guys is actually on the presentation, but they'll all be available for questions and any questions they have. So I'm just gonna turn it over to them and let them take it.
And I have a few handouts here that I'll pass out and then.
So I think what we're asking here tonight is basically we're making a formal presentation. We did, I believe, the detailed specifics to the Eve says part of the apparatus plan. I think that was a good month, maybe 2 months ago already. We got feedback. So I think this was kind of the next step in the process, which was asking the EXE for hopefully the supervisors that they support the purchase that we're doing. So.
About the process, anything here, is that what you're thinking? So, Ephraim, couldn't get a copy. And who is in control of changing the slide? Just ask for the next slide.
Lonnie is our past chief, and he is currently our chief engineer. He's been on the apparatus committee as well, so the chairman had asked him to do the presentation, and like I said, they'll all be available for questions. And
Perfect. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Lonnie Kaufman, like you've heard already. So I have the presentation in paper in front of me. I might be looking there too, just to make sure that we're on the same page. So, Tara, if you go to the second slide, which should be project summary, the project or the scope of the project is about what we call engine 41-1, with 41 being the number of the Hand-in-Hand Fire Company station. It's the primary firefighting piece at our station. And we just call it the engine loosely. And so this committee was formed last year to start the work of planning the replacement for this engine because it's getting old. And so this presentation summarizes the committee's work up until, I guess, really today. I think the slide says July 12th. That's probably because that was at our fire meeting at our fire station. All right, next slide. The committee members has been touched on already. Fire Chief Tom Boyer and Deputy Chief Jerry and Ephraim. Arlen Miller is here in the audience. I'm Lonnie Kaufman. Dallas here. Is Doug here tonight? By the way, couldn't make it, but he was a big help with his expertise. Lance Watt is back here, and then President Paul Fisher as well. All right, next slide. So as a quick, I guess, a brief rundown of the current engine, which is actually sitting out here in the parking lot. The guys brought it up, which I thought was nice. It is a year 2000 custom Pierce Lance. So Pierce is the manufacturer, Lance is the model, kind of like saying Ford F-150, same idea. Our station purchased it new in 1999 for about $457,000. At that point, that was before the apparatus plan. So it was, at that point, it was funded 100% by the fire company. So it's 23 years old as it's here tonight, and it has around 28,000 miles on it. As far as fire calls at Station 41, I respond on around 80% of the fire calls at Station 41. And beyond that, as you all are well familiar, it provides assistance on fires in all of East Lampeter Township and to various fire companies in neighboring townships. Laycock, Strasburg, Paradise, Southbury, and so Upper Laycock. The major components, as far as the components on the truck itself, as it sits now, is a 1,000-gallon water tank. 2,250 GPM pump, gallons per minute pump, 8-man cab, 2,200 feet of 5-inch supply hose. The CAF means compressed air foam system, which provides improved fire attacks. Any questions on that so far from anybody? So if we go to the next slide, this now is the summary of the planned replacement engine. So what I just told you was what our current engine has. This is what we're planning for the new engine. We believe it's going to be a 26 mile a year, but that's a little bit fluid because Pierce themselves isn't real sure of exactly how long it's going to take to manufacture the piece. It'll be a Pierce Enforcer, which is one of their modern chassis. And we're planning it as a direct replacement for our current engine. So there are not major changes in the expected use as it compares to our current engine. It will still be the primary piece, the primary firefighting and rescue piece at our station, and it will still assist neighboring stations and neighboring townships. The major components are relatively the same. There will be 7 airbox seats. We included that in the presentation on purpose because that itself is an improvement of our current engine, which has 5 airbags. So this one will have 7. A 2,000 gallon per minute pump, 1,000 gallon water tank. We'd like to keep the compressed air foam system, 1,800 feet of water supply hose, 6 fire attack lines, and topside storage. The topside storage is storage on top. It's called coffin boxes by some people, which is going to be new for us. And as part of the apparatus replacement, the committee is also planning to replace a good amount of loose equipment like hoses and nozzles. A lot of those pieces are also 23 years old. And so just from a maintenance, and we want to make sure this stuff works standpoint, it's time to replace some of those pieces as well. And then mounting for that equipment would be supplied by Glick Fire equipment. All right, the next slide is the print of the rig. This is supplied by Pierce Fire equipment and Glick Fire. So I don't know if I guess to point out, you have the top of the passenger side, we call it the opposite side. And then the very middle is the bird's eye view looking down on the rig. The bottom is the driver's side, with the front and the back of the rig being on the right side of the slide. So I don't know how much detail you can see there. Is there any questions on this particular slide where we see the prints? It's difficult to see the detail, but at least gives you a little bit of a visual on what this rig should look like.
Is it essentially the same size as the one outside?
It's a little larger, say, essentially relative, but I would say essentially, but it is a little longer, a little, yeah, but not as, say, my bad, a little lower, but longer. Did I get that right? Okay, thanks.
So that a couple of the capacities are just a little bit below what you have now. No issue with that.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Ephraim or Jerry, you want to speak to that?
The 5-inch, which is probably the most obvious, 2,200 feet is what we currently have on this engine, and 1,800 feet is what we have spec. Our officers did a pretty extensive researching project on the amount of driveways we have in our first two that are over that 1,800 feet threshold, and there's only one, which is what the 2,200 feet was on there for. We were trying to achieve a few things with this. We wanted to keep the 1,000 gallons of water on here, and to also achieve that love goes benefits. We are moving the tackle results for here. So that's kind of why there's a lesser amount there. We're still covering for most of what we do. There will be a tactical change on that specific address in our first two. We will be planning on having somebody else usually.
Thank you for that.
And the I'm not sure that the 2250. I think we had just add so for we felt we wanted a minimum 2,000 gallons, and since we were already a little bit longer than the current rig because of the larger cab, We went with the 2,000 to stay within range of our contingent. What was the other one there? Yeah, the storage, that's one thing that's gonna be major upgrade, from old to new. The cotton box adds a lot of flexibility for work. Not as frequently used. Which we don't have. And then just overall compartments will be a lot more, than what we have. Yeah, does that answer the?
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, thank you.
That's a good observation. There's some of those numbers changed. Any other questions?
The 7-pack position
Yeah.
on the truck, that's everybody but the driver?
That's correct.
That's also an upgrade from old to new. We do have 2 packs currently in the compartments of our old engine. We're now going to have those 2 packs in riding positions, in seat positions. Which is why we have the 84-inch cab as well, get as much room as possible.
Anything else? Any other questions there? Okay, anything? Okay, we'll go on to the next slide then. So we have a slide here about improvements compared to the current rig. So we've already touched on some of these things in the conversation. But just to be very specific with other improvements compared to the current rig, the front disc brakes and independent front suspension for better braking, turning, and handling. Which I guess in my personal perspective, if I think about this new truck being 23 or maybe 26 years newer than the current one, I would expect to get better handling. So the disc brakes and independent front suspension are what's providing that. The engine, the Cummins X15 engine, that will be, I guess you could use the word proactive, trying to stay ahead of the EPA regulations so that this will meet the 2027 EPA emissions as we understand them. Lower center of gravity and collision avoidance system. The collision avoidance system, as we understand it from Pierce, is a electronic system that broadcasts the presence of an emergency vehicle to drivers in the area to make them aware that something is coming.
It would be on your map, like on your car mapping, the newer car, the mapping systems, radio systems in the vehicle, it'll advise them that there is an emergency vehicle in the area when they're approaching the intersections.
With the goal being for higher. We touched on size. There is space, larger 8-man cab, and then all LED lighting. That is I think for me personally anyway, a pretty big deal with the newer trucks with the LED lighting and the automatic night mode. The automatic night mode will, as I understand it, dim the LEDs automatically when there's when it's night, so that they don't blind. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Currently, your drivers have to be certified to drive the trucks, right? Do you have to go through a recertification or a retraining of all drivers?
Good question. Do any of you know the details on that?
We'll retrain everyone when the rig comes in. Pierce actually will provide a training on the unit. Anyone that's certified now, go through the training process. How it goes.
Ballpark in terms of traditional, conventional versus electronic. There are a lot more electronics on this versus the. Yeah.
Some by choice, other decisions were already made for us.
Right.
I think a comment I would offer here too in regards to the driver training is that our tanker, which is another piece in our station, is relatively new. I think 2014 model, I believe. And so as far as just driving, knowing it and knowing how it feels, this Enforcer is going to be very similar to what we have already. So, that you could say that we already have some training on this new piece, even though we don't have it yet. Let's go to the next slide, the quoted contract. The quote from Pierce for this rig is $1,337,669. Seagrave and E1, which are also manufacturers of fire trucks were both asked to provide a competitive quote, but they declined. The loose equipment.
Did they say why? They say
We have some letters here from both Seagrave and E1. I'll read those.
But just what did they say? Bottom line.
There was the Seagrave, their main reason was after they reviewed our spec sheet, our initial spec sheet, there were many items that Seagrave cannot or does not offer at this point. And then they also mentioned that with their unit being all stainless steel, so the body and cabins won't be made of stainless steel, where this is aluminum. They felt that would be too high price to sell to us in given our demographics. Then one, they reviewed our initial spec as well, and one of their main reasons was that they felt our spec list strongly favors a specific manufacturer. The personal connection of a trustee that was a member at our company, they felt they went to be glad.
So to give you some color there, Eric, what's really going on there, and this same thing happened, I think, when we bought our tanker in 2013 is, in addition to what he just said,
I was told that this letter goes line for line.
the exact same letter we got 7 or 8 years when we got the tanker, is that Glick Fire Equipment is in our first due area. We have a very close relationship with them. Their former CEO is actually one of our trustees. He's been instrumental in helping us with apparatus and all that kind of thing. And so they kind of know the connection we have there. I think what they're basically saying is this is a complex process to bid this, and we kind of know, like, there's no way you guys are going to buy it from us. I mean, that's basically what they're saying, I think.
Probably a light way of saying don't waste our time.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's kind of like, you know, yeah.
That's the way it is.
From their perspective, it's like you guys kind of have somebody in the family that is a direct competitor of ours, and we're not even going to bother to bid the piece, I think is essentially what they're saying, but.
Does that answer your question as far as the other manufacturers? Okay. So on this price slide, the new loose equipment that we talked about earlier totals $104,097. And so I will also say on this slide, these numbers are summaries, but we have a lot of detail supporting this. We have a long Excel sheet that, and I believe we have that here tonight if people want it. You know. The equipment mounting, the quote is in the range of $40,000 to $50,000. And so we use the top side of that range, 50,000, for the calculation for the grand total of $1,491,766. And then if we go to the next slide, this shows the payment plan options that the committee thought would be relevant here. So there's 3 options. We hand in hand is preferring the third one, and I'll let Paul and Jerry and Ethan go into the details, but I'll run through the options here. So option 1, it uses that grand total number of $1,491,766. The 60% from the township would be about $895,060. And again, that's not a perfect number. I think we rounded that, but it's very close to that. And then the 40% from existing fire company savings would be about $596,706. There are some discounts available. So option 1 doesn't take any discounts into consideration. Option 2, there is a prepaid discount that Pierce offers. It's in the first bullet point. The prepaid discount the discount itself is $97,188. So if you do that math, that makes the price $1,394,578. And then the 60% and 40% are using that for the calculation. So $836,747 from the township, and existing fire company savings would provide $557,831.
Is that full prepay? Is that a percentage? How does it work?
That's my understanding of full.
Yeah. I think it's within 60 days or 90 days of signing the contract.
Option 3 then is the price with only the chassis discount applied. And if you look at the first bullet point under that, the chassis discount is $18,035. So if you take the option one number minus that, that equals $1,473,731. And then the 60% and 40% again, based on that number, $884,239 on the township side and $589,492 on the fire company side. And so that, again, that's quickly the three options. I'm not prepared to delve into the details. That's going to be Paul and Jerry. Paul, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I can share a little bit. So what our thought process was there. So just to clarify a couple of things, that third option talks about the chassis discount. I think that would be if we paid for the chassis approximately 90 days.
So the chassis discount, the details on that it's a cost of $619,220. If that is paid 90 days prior to the approximate completion or delivery, you get $18,035. So that's the chassis.
So that would be basically paying for that chassis 2.5 years from now, 3 years from now, 90 days prior to delivery, paying the $600-some thousand, we'd get the $18,000 discount. So our thought was, and we're gonna work with the township. We don't have a strong opinion on this, but just on the basic math, the way we're looking at it is, it would make the most sense, I think, on the spreadsheet for us, if we would simply take just the chassis discount, wait until 90 days before delivery, pay the $600-some thousand, take that discount and then pay for the balance on delivery. And the reason we would prefer that is because right now we can, if you just do the math, we can get a CD for a little over 5%. And if you combine the township and the fire company's total price of, let's say, 1.4 million at 5%, you're looking at about $70,000 a year. They're talking about delivering this 3 years from now. So we're saying, well, we can get $70,000 a year for the next 3 years, which is $210,000. Why would we take a $90,000 discount and prepay it? Like, it to us, and literally we can lock in the FDIC insured CD. And it's, so to us, it'd be kind of be throwing money away. Now, in the past, we paid for it right up front when the math was different, when interest rates were different and lead times were different. But for us looking at it, we're just kind of like, that's what makes the most sense to us. That's what we prefer. But I don't know what the township's, preference or what their financial, how they do business. We're open to doing any of the three, I think is what we're saying. But if you're asking which one we prefer, that would be the third one we would prefer. So,
Well, the value of the used piece of equipment 3 years down the road.
yeah, so we couldn't sell it until we took delivery of this one, got it up and running, people trained on it and all that. So it would happen after that. I'm sure we would start advertising it prior to that, which is, one of the conditions being that they couldn't take delivery of it prior to us being ready to release it. But yeah, we're definitely looking to sell that. I don't know that we have a good feel right now for what we can get on our long-term budget that we've been budgeting for the last 15 years. We've been saying typically in the past, we've gotten roughly 1/3 of what we paid for it. That would put that number at around 150,000. I think that's probably a reasonable figure, give or take 20.
And that money goes back to the township because you paid.
That would actually come back to the fire company in this example, because we paid for 100% of it. This would be the last rig that we paid 100% of. Yeah, so it would be coming back to this.
And it doesn't have any major expensive repairs.
Our existing engine, not really, other than, we've had routine maintenance on it. I think probably the worst thing we've had in the 23 years we've had it was the generator burnout on us. I think twice. We repaired it one time for, I don't know what it was, $5,000 or $6,000. The second time around we replaced it was $20-some thousand. You put new tires on it, it's $20,000 or whatever. But by and large, we probably run $4,000 or $5,000 a year in maintenance costs, but not, it's held up really well. We maintain it really well. We've been very proactive at preventive maintenance and all that. But I think does that sound fair, guys? I think it's served it really well.
It's held up very well. It is here and there starting to show its age, but it's still in great shape for the year.
I do want to touch on the new rig water hydro generator.
Yeah, because of the LED lighting, I think is a big part of that. So we won't have that. It's one less thing that can go wrong, even though with all the extra electronics and all the other stuff, you're still going to have. Our experience has been, The maintenance doesn't change that much. Hopefully you don't have, well, you don't have the large ticket items because of warranty and just the fact that it's newer, but your ongoing annual maintenance is still not cheap to maintain a, $1.4 million piece of apparatus.
You talk to the warranty.
I'll turn that back to these guys. Can you guys tell us what that?
It's a whole book.
It is very extensive, the warranties, and I will honestly say for myself, I'm not fully prepared to answer a whole lot of questions on.
There's warranties on pump.
I was gonna say, I bet you there's different for the different components. Okay,
Yeah, there's
sure.
a whole packet of warranties. It was great.
Yeah.
And we do that, get that information, anybody who.
We can make that available.
I can shed some light on that from Lafayette's purchase. It was like 20 years on the paint and on the body, the structural, as far as corrosion and rust. So
Is that a Pierce?
yes.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different components that go into it. So when you have a pump, that might be 5 years, the engine could be 5 years, but the body and structural components are usually 15 to 20.
My only point of reference is a regular vehicle, you know what I mean? So if you talk about, those kinds, but there's a lot more.
The certification and warranties, PDF, the document, 75 pages long. Which a lot of us have dove into a little bit from the apparatus community side of it, but it's something that takes a lot of time to do. And
Riveting, I'm sure it's very exciting.
You kind of pick out the important parts, like the tank, and like the engine, and you read down everything. Yeah, obviously everything's in there, but answering questions on.
I would say, based on their track record, again, we have a pretty good relationship, I think, with Licks and with Pierce in the past. Just to give you an example, our tanker here in the past year, I think we had some issues with a couple of valves or something. I forget what it was. It was questionable whether it was a manufacturer thing or whether it was just use. Was no longer covered by warranty, and they made it right. They fixed it for us at no cost. And it was probably it was going to be $5,000 to $8,000. So some of that stuff, even there, like I said, technically, I don't think that was under warranty even anymore. But we feel good about the relationship that we've had with them, and they've been good to us in the past. So hopefully, that combined with the warranties, why I think we have a pretty good feeling about it.
Any other questions on this particular slide at this point?
I can. What is the amount that you're asking for? Is that the 1.491?
Option 3 would be.
473, that's the one you're asking for. So how'd you get to 1.473? That's my question. When I look at the breakdown, I have a question about the equipment mounting, $40,000 to $50,000. And I'm sorry, but the only thing I have to reference on that is when Lafayette did their engine, and we came in at just under $11,000 for equipment mounting.
That would be a nice.
We got that number from Glicks. They could not give us a concrete number, which we were a little perturbed at, but I guess it's so that they don't feel comfortable putting on that.
Yeah, they didn't give us a number either. I think we put 10,000 in our plan, and it turned out to be just 11.
That's good. That's good. That's good to know, because we already got that number from.
I would be comfortable with 20,000.
Yeah.
The other question I had was the loose equipment. Is that figured into the cost of the engine? Because as far as I know, what we're approving should be an engine supplied with NFPA equipment, which is supplied with ladders, supplied with pipe poles, supplied with not $104,000 worth of equipment. Now, maybe in the next rendition of the emergency services plan, we'll have equipment in there, but as far as I know, that we only purchase the engine plus essential equipment.
So.
Well, I can talk maybe put a little bit more on that. We weren't exactly sure what all is covered in and maybe I'm just Not understand.
An engine supply with NFPA equipment.
Basically, we've never paid for the loose equipment on a unit, so the hose is responsibility of the fire company, nozzle is responsibility of the fire company. Anything that comes with it, so like Dave said, it's the pike poles, the ground ladders, the 2 fire extinguishers have to come with it. Any loose equipment, we've always, it's been fire company supplies.
Are you clear with that, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The apparatus plan, and I think it was somewhat of a. I forget what the exact language was, and that was one of the questions that I had for the ESC is, I guess I was under the impression that hose was supplied with it, but that's not correct.
We've already mentioned we had to supply.
Okay.
We have to supply it.
Maybe in the next rendition.
Obviously, we'll take out, so we have a full spreadsheet, I think there's a couple hundred.
Talk about that. That's a slide of presentation. So this is the loose equipment in this category. Because the Excel spreadsheet is far too limited into a PowerPoint spreadsheet, but equipment in the cab. I'm not even sure if I should read down the whole list. But that's the list of the categories of loose equipment that's included in that 100,000 number. Does that make sense? But I hear what you're saying too.
So I guess my question is for you guys or for the committee, where do we get a list of NFPA? Or the definition of what NFPA consider?
Oh, that should be in your bid spec already.
You say loose equipment.
They provide.
Some, well, I mean, I know where they define some equipment, but.
Your suction hose will be in there, your strainer will be in there, your ground ladders will be in there, your 2 pipe will be in there, 2 fire extinguishers. There'll be a section that says loose equipment.
I think currently it's in as supply. Yeah, we would have to get in,
Is that,
which we can.
that price, like for the ladders and the suction hose and the strainer and everything that comes with every engine that comes off the line, no matter who, should be included in the price of the unit. That should not be separate. So your 1.3 whatever million should include that equipment that's listed.
The one for sure that I know of is the hard suction, because I know for a fact that is being supplied by.
Or that'll be, that is part of the NFPA equipment list for it.
I'm sure that NFPA list is available somewhere too, so the committee can go back. And
Well,
that.
But like you said, you have it in there as supplied by yourself. So you have to reverse that, that's all.
yeah, so you can't follow the NFPA spec because it's other equipment, but manufacturers have to supply certain pieces of equipment on an engine. I know suction hose, ground ladders, pike poles, 2 axes. Axes are, but halogen bars are not. It's really weird. 2 fire extinguishers, a dry chemical and a water extinguisher, I know is in there, but anything else like adapters, all that's always not included. That's always been.
Yeah, so we'll take that out, yeah. Good point.
The only question I have is you are asking for all the money up front and you're gonna put it in a CD.
No, we were not asking for the money. We're just saying that.
Because you said about taking a CD out and making 70,000 off 1 point whatever million, so I didn't know.
Right, no,
Somebody can make.
we're just saying somebody can. So obviously the township would make their 60% of that, we'd make our 30%.
Okay.
So between the percent of that, you know.
We're just asking that we don't prepay the prepaid discount of
I just was
$90.
doing it, said we could put the 1 point whatever in the bank and make
So
7.
I said we, I meant we collectively as the township. And
What is needed to place the order? How does that work?
The fire company to sign the order that says we want.
And does that lock you in then?
Yeah, it does, yes. Yeah, it's basically a matter of signing. I think we have the contract in hand. It's basically a matter of signing the contract.
They won't want to do that until the board of supervisors.
Right.
We're gonna pitch in our 60%.
There is one more slide, the anticipated purchase timeline, so let's cover that, and then I'm sure we can have more discussion as needed. The order date, our goal at our station was to place the order by July 28th. That is shortly. And that is partly because Pierce has informed us there's a pending price increase coming later this summer. And our understanding is that it's going to be around 1.7% starting on August 1st. Is that still accurate from the last time we talked about it? You didn't get new information? Yeah. The quote includes a 3.5-year queue for manufacturing of new orders. And that's why we think it'll be a 2026 model, might turn out to be a 7 model. Depending. So we anticipate delivery in late 2026 and then getting the rig in service in early 2027. And of course, that's subject to change based on the manufacturing timeline. But that's what we're being told at the moment. So Paul and the other guys, I'll let you take it from here. That's the end of the presentation. So thank you all. Paul,
Are you want to jump into that timeline thing along here?
Yeah, so obviously that timeline is before the next supervisor meeting. We just put it in there because, again, that's just what we're being told. And like I said, I think they're estimating 1.7% increase. I don't know if there's really a whole lot we can do about that. Like I said, I don't know if we can place the order without getting approval from the. We still, I guess we could, but then we're on the hook for the full amount. So we would probably simply wait until we get approval from the supervisors and then place the order. In terms of the actual pricing, I guess what we could do is we could go back to Pierce on August 1 or whatever and get that updated pricing. In the meantime, we could also clean up the equipment and make sure that we're clear on taking off anything that's not NFPA approved and give you a final number. Again, August 1st or whenever that price increase happens. I guess the question is, can we approve it or can we recommend it to be approved at this meeting with those two changes, or do we need to come back in 2 months and do the process?
Well, I have a question on that. Have you talked to them at all about maybe stretching that out a little bit because of the set fix we're in here with the township?
Yeah, they have, and
They won't.
it's coming straight from the manufacturer.
This is directly from Pierce. This isn't from Cliff Fire.
I understand that.
I'm just saying that Pierce is doing their increases regardless of what situation.
And just for what it's worth, this isn't like this is the only one this year. They've been doing it like every 2 months for the last couple of years. It's just the prices are going up in there. So yeah, can we ask him? Yeah, we basically already did that, and the answer is pretty much no. So
I'll make a motion that we accept your proposal with the removal of the loose equipment at the quoted price today, with the price to be updated for the supervisors meeting, such that'll be August 7th. So I accept this price with the possible 1.7% price increase. But you'll have a good number for the board of supervisors, but I will make the motion to support this as long as we remove out that loose equipment.
So we remove the loose equipment, and I guess that's kind of part of that, but as long as we're not removing something that's not an FPA, again, because I'm not clear on whether any of that equipment is
handle that. Yeah.
on the same page, that it would not include.
Right,
any
like-
equipment that's
Like
not-
I said, it'll be listed out in your spec like Dave said. It says loose equipment, what's there is what they have to put on there. If it's not on that list, then.
Okay.
But it should be included with the price of the truck.
So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Question on the amounting of equipment is stated 40 to 50,000. Would you be comfortable in modifying that to 20 or 25?
I would be comfortable going back to them and asking if we can't reduce it. Maybe one way of doing it would be, can you give us like the last 4 engines in the township and take an average of the equipment mounting and take that quote? Well, then give us that and use that number.
In the last 4 engines. Doesn't have.
Do you know what yours was by chance?
You can't use ours because it's 16 years ago.
But 63.2.
I got the last 4 engines that Glick ran through.
Well, yeah,
Take the average of those 4.
yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Dave, would you also be okay if the 4 fire chiefs saw the the changes before it went to the supervisors. Just an email saying this.
I've been entrusted by the fire company to speak on behalf of the fire company.
But I mean,
I'll still let Dad know
Yeah, yeah.
tonight, but
I'm just saying, so the information is right before it goes to the
I
supervisor.
think they did their homework. Their presentation was on point.
Yep.
And, just adjust the numbers a little bit for presentation to the supervisors, and I'll second the motion that's in place.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Second one, any opposed? Melanie or Susan, who said aye? Susan.
I said aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have two ayes there. Any opposed? Okay, passes.
Okay, thank you.
We're good. Good work. Let's talk about Lafayette Battery.
We continue to meet monthly. They paid a visit to Wick Manufacturing and looked at several aerial ladders earlier in June. And the end of June, they had Fireline come with a ladder truck and they reviewed that, but they're still working the process of specking out the unit.
Questions on the ladder truck? Okay, let's go to the Public Information Subcommittee report.
So, yeah, we did have the meeting. Since our last meeting, I think you should have hopefully all seen the results of our last couple of meetings, which was the mutual aid article and the township newsletter. So they gave the township put 2 pages in there. We appreciate that. Hopefully that was well received. So I guess, first of all, looking for feedback for that. And then the other thing was, we're actually have a meeting coming up here on the 26th, I think. Yeah, July 26th is our next meeting, and we're going to be talking about the next article or two. And we're looking at probably doing an article about donations coming into year end, and then possibly either as part of that article or the following article, we'll be doing one about fire prevention as well. We thought we weren't sure what, we're probably going to definitely do the fundraising appeal. We feel like it's getting close to year end. We haven't really done that yet. So it'd be a chance for us to kind of reach out and funds before the year end. However, it's also, I think in October is prevention weeks, and we thought it'd be a good time to also do some fire prevention. So not sure exactly where how that will end up, but yeah, we're continuing to meet, working on it. Know that really have anything else other than, again, feedback on good or bad.
Neighbor who's a retired fireman said that is as professional a job as he's seen any department use. Very clear, the font, the spacing, the images, super job. I mean, it really good. I mean, I feel that way, but it's nice to know that, people are noticing that.
We did reach out to Hershey Farms and had gotten there. Probably what it got to again, like it was kind of dragging out their time, and we wanted to make sure they were okay with what we were doing, since it was talking a little bit about their specific incident. But we thought that was a good opportunity to cover one that the public had kind of been aware of, and it kind of fit with the mutual aid concept of what we're trying to do.
Feedback quotes with personalities, that was great. Really thought that was nice.
Any other comments? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Human Resource Report efforts. Anybody have a human resource?
I can tell you Lafayette handed out a few applications, but they didn't come back. We've had a couple people stop in, and I can't fight fire. I have a bad back, I have a bad knee, that kind of thing. We did hand out a few junior applications. One junior was from Manheim, PA. I'm not sure how he's going to participate. We did hand out another one to a junior who wanted to join. Her father owns the barbecue place there on Lincoln Highway, just down from the fire station. She works there summertime, but yeah, she joined up and she's been active as far as coming to training and stuff, but no fire calls. So that's it. Juniors and people who wish they could participate.
When they can't participate, can they do other things that are non-firefighting?
I have put that out there. There is administrative, treasury duties. There is administrative duties that they could help with, but if they don't come back, they can't.
Other fire companies?
If you don't mind, I have a couple of guys here from our recruitment retention committee. I'll put them on the spot here a little bit. Marlon, you say anything about how our recruitment retention is going, new members, give a little bit of an update on how things are going. I know we've been putting a lot of effort, focus on it. I think it's paying off, or anybody else that's on the committee that's here.
No, just on the training side, we've had a lot of new members join, the last 6 months, and part of the training committee is definitely the challenge, but it's a good challenge. I know, I think your name right now, we were in your development there.
Yeah.
That was seemed in.
Yeah. Is summer usually a time that you found? I mean, almost everybody has some issues in the summer because of people going away and things like that.
No, for us, I said, we've been the last, let's say 2-3 years now, we've been putting kind of a full court press on it. And we are definitely getting results. It's hard. I think internally, we're kind of asking, is it correlation or is it causation? Is it because we're doing the full court press, or are we just something change? But we definitely, I would say we've probably gotten more members. And I don't know, what do you guys think? We've probably gotten more new members in the last year and a half than we've probably ever gotten in a 1 or 2 year period. Yeah, I don't really have the data to back that up, but we have gotten a lot of new members.
There's no question that our training roster is filled out a lot more than it was at one point with members. We had 30 some people went to Westchester and the Burn. That was unbelievable. I never had that kind of group from a single training provider before. Had a great day and lots of fun. People seem to be enjoying it. I feel like some of the people come, they're there for a while and then they get other interests to move along. It feels like a good percentage of these are serious about it. So that feels good. I think that we're going to have some healthy young energy in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, that we're going to have some men that are dedicated. So that's kind of exciting.
Well, beginning this fall, our data. So because of the new program that we have that's being built, so there's going to be, everybody's going to get entered into that, and anybody new coming into that, including when their start dates are. So we'll be very easy to answer your question by looking at that.
We talked about before, we were working on some custom software to specifically for HR, will actually apply to some other things as well, but we'll be able to in the future, hopefully have the hard data to back it up. How many engineers do we have? How many junior firefighters, interior, exterior? What training qualifications do they have versus a few years or 10 years ago? And it was one of the things we talked about when we started the program. Is one of the, unfortunately right now, it's all kind of feel because we really don't have the data, or we have the data, but for the most part, it's buried in all these different reports that different people have. And there's training reports and there's fireman reports and there's membership things. There's all this stuff. And then for somebody to compile it all, we do it, but we'll be able to, hopefully with the new software, be able to literally just print out pretty much any of this information. And when we have that up and running, it's partially running now, that's far from done. Be excited to kind of show it to the committee maybe, and maybe somebody else in the township, the other companies might be something they could benefit from too. But right now it's still a work in progress, but kind of excited about, it's just one part of the whole HR thing that we're doing right now. So.
Anything else? Whitmer? Okay, let's move on to a school fire training internship and first responder club. Susie, are you involved with that?
So those are two separate things. So one is for the middle school level, which firefighter Miller from Whitmer ran at the middle school level. And then we did have interest in the internship program. It took a little hiatus because Desiree Kramer was the lead person on that. And obviously, dealing with Chief Kramer's health has been priority. So we'll have to circle back around to that at the next meeting.
Good, thank you.
I would add, I know one of the teachers at the high school was in the business department that was very interested in these. Unfortunately, took another teaching job near his home, and they're regrouping that, but Mel Upton, who is the administrator who's in charge of those things, she understands that, so I have full confidence she'll follow that up.
If you wouldn't mind helping make the connection there, that would be fantastic between myself, Desiree, and her. It'd be great.
Do that. Yep.
Any other old business? Let's go into new business, the 2022 combined financial statements.
Yeah, we do this every year. This is on the May agenda. More time, so put back on this agenda. For review and discussion.
Sounds like we've had some good fundraisers, some successful fundraisers.
What has been the difference with the fundraising that they've been successful?
Well, I know Lafayette's last was,
The state cook-off was our last month.
was your last, was it before that you guys sold out?
The chicken barbecue.
Chicken barbecue?
Yeah, that's the first in many years.
Yeah.
Other comments on fundraising? Any other comments on the financial report? Rob, anything that you want to point out?
No, I don't think so. I think 22 played out pretty much as expected.
Take a look at it. We can review numbers next time and see, just take a look. See if you have specific questions about specific activities, either why were things high, but also why were things successful, and see if we can share some of that. Go to the next one. Dave, you want to talk a little bit about memo that you sent?
Can we push that to the end?
Sure. Yeah. How about Barnstormers game, August 12th, 2023?
Sure. So I think we reported on this a little bit last meeting, but the Barnstormers approached the township asking if the township would agree to sponsor without really any cost to us, East Lampeter night at the Barnstormers game. So we're doing that. It's on August the 12th. It's a Saturday night. Fireworks after the game. The understanding with the Barnstormers is that a portion of the ticket sales are going to be pooled and distributed to the fire companies. When that's, well, to be distributed to us first, I guess, and then we'll distribute them to the fire. I think it was $4.
The ticket costs are $9 and $4 of those dollars will come back to be distributed.
There's opportunity. I know there's been contact with the chiefs about displaying equipment at the venue. Each fire company will be provided with a table on the concourse area. Contact hopefully with township residents who have purchased tickets going to the game. We would like to ask if each fire company could identify one junior firefighter to participate in throwing out a first pitch. Then the Barnstormers have also come up with another activity. You know, they do a lot of stuff between innings, something involving super soaker. So
Some kind of super soaker relay race with firefighters.
Just good guys right up here, right now.
Any volunteers for that? Each of the companies would be like,
Bring around 2.5 gallons.
they'll be providing.
So we have a little bit of competition among the 4 fire companies for that part of it. What else is, trying to encourage everybody in the community to buy tickets, and hopefully we can raise as much money for the fire companies as possible. The tables that you guys have available there on the concourse, if you want to put out a donation booth or something, you know, you certainly can do that to try to gather more donations from over there. So hopefully it'll be a positive event. It's the first try for us, so may become an annual thing. We'll have to see how it goes.
There is a certain code you have to use when you purchase the tickets. It's been on our Facebook page at least 2 times, so we would suggest you share that on your own Facebook pages. If that's.
You know what that code is?
It's a QR code.
Oh, QR code. Questions?
Yeah, what's the target goal to raise? Like, do you have any idea of 5,000, 15,000? Any budget idea?
I don't, I think, you know, until we go through this once and get a feel for it, we'll have a better idea next year if we continue to do it, but I guess.
Okay, let's move on. Let's start with polling township. Anything to add, Ralph?
Sure. So we do get updates to the driver's list, for the field run system, but you know, keep that stuff coming whenever you've got changes that we need to put in. So we get everybody with the spill control reports for MS4 efforts, so keep those coming. Appreciate that. At this point, although it's tentative, it appears that at the end of September, the Walnut Street Extension project will be substantially complete and probably to use at that point. There was a recent court decision that I read having to do with the right to know law, which suggests that records of fire companies are also subject to the right to know law. So if any of you get a right to know request and you want some help with it, let me know. Happy to try to serve that purpose. I'm the right to know officer for the township. Definitions of what are public records and what are not, that can be complicated, and how responses have to be completed in timely fashion and what has to be in them. You do that just about every day. So happy to help with that. If you would get such a request, I suspect that's. But if you do want some help, just give me a call. We've been scanning.
Before you go further, they'll get contacted by somebody. And what's the best response that they should give before they get a chance to talk to that person that will get back to you, need to talk with you? What would you say?
There's no, a response is required within 5 business days. So hopefully somebody will be able to get a hold of me within 5 business days, but you know, if you just want to acknowledge receipt of the request on it, you know, when it comes in, that's probably all you really need to do.
Does it often come in? Does it come in typically by letter, or is it by phone call, or what's it by?
It's usually either walked in on paper or emailed to us. Phone calls don't work.
Okay.
It has to be something that you can look at and read to know what they're actually requesting.
So the comment is then, if somebody calls into the fire company and asks for information, it needs to be a written request.
It does. There's a,
So if you get a call in at the station, it should be a written request. And that's when you get Ralph involved. A lot of times when I was in some capacities I had, people would call and they want something right away. They need to make a deadline for a newspaper or something like that. And they kind of pressured you a little bit into making a comment quickly before you've had the time to process it. That's why I'm talking about it.
yeah, there's a standard form that the state has put out, which most people use. We have a standard form in here that we ask everybody who makes a request to fill out and use that. I guess one important distinction I would say is that what they can request through this legal requirement is their documents. So they can't just ask for information. And you don't have to create documents just because somebody asks for something. So if it's a public document and you have it, it's probably subject to the right to know law, but you don't have to create documents. You don't have to go, you're not somebody's research intern to go find anything that somebody. We've been scanning and saving a lot of what have been paper documents in the township office. So we've accumulated a number of empty file cabinets. If anybody needs file cabinets for something, we're happy to make them available to you. Otherwise, they're going to get scrap heaped and sold for metal. So
They like the four.
yeah, typically, old style. But happy to share those with the fire company. The thing I would mention is sort of looking forward into 24 and things that staff is looking at is an emergency notification system. It's basically a software program, and people would be given the opportunity to register for emergency notifications. So as we get further into that, we want to have contact with the fire companies as to how that would, perhaps benefit you in dealing with emergencies or sharing information or other functions that the system can serve. So we're just sort of in the early stages of investigating that area, but wanted you to know that we are, and we'll be in touch with you about that. Thank you.
Okay, questions for Al? Let's poll the fire companies. Let's start with Ronks.
Just a couple things. The building repairs that were reported on last meeting have been completed or scheduled to be completed. The struts that were approved ordered with a late September, early October timeframe. And also the portable radio and mobile radio check we had done was completed. Our mobiles were all good. We did lose 9 portable radios, so we lost 25% of our portable radios. We still have 21 portable radios in service, so we are not a critical stage, but we had to reassign some radios. And basically they said it's just like anything else, it's a computer system, and over time some of them die and some of them don't. So but, right now we do have 21. So every air pack seat and every line officer still is free, and there are a couple of spares. So. Questions?
And again,
Just a couple of items, more on the administrative side. We did have a successful auction here in the past month, last week in June. And so we're wrapping that up, and we're also kind of gearing up now for a half marathon event that's coming up on September 8th and 9th. Things looking pretty good so far with our registrations and everything that are coming up for that. We're trying to get through the apparatus part here yet. Other than that, Chief, do you have anything on the tactical side?
questions? About Whitmer.
Yeah, sure. We did have a community meet and greet on the 14th. Our next one's scheduled for September 8th. We are continuing to partner with Penn Medicine for free vaccines at Whitmer for the uninsured, and to hold blood drives at the station every 8 weeks. We also are going to be doing husking corn, cutting about 750 dozen ears of corn on August 18th and 19th at our station. That'll give us enough corn for our 3 takeout ox roasts. We're going to be attending the National Night Out. Then we're in the process of upgrading all our mobile radios on the apparatus.
All our portables have been updated and the new software has been put in to support the phase 2. The council's question for.
Questions for Lafayette?
State cook-off was a success, like I had mentioned. Camp Cadet, we had 50 participants from the county, all over the county participate. Mike, you were there. Thank you. Got to witness some of the activities. National Night Out, we will be attending. Hose testing for all the fire companies is for the first week of August. That's ISO requirement. We had a blood drive at the firehouse today, and we have back to school nights planned in the near future.
Questions for Lafayette?
Just comment, very impressed with Lafayette and the job they did at the Camp Cadet, and the people there working. It was a hot, humid day. I want to shout out to Sue Yoder, who was in full fire gear. She certainly bested me on that, full participant. So well done, Susan.
Well, it certainly gives you an appreciation for those that are actually doing the job. That is for sure.
Yeah, the kids were very enthusiastic. The activities were really well organized, and just a great job. And of course, the other fire departments that were there too. We're doing a good job. But kudos to Lafayette for that, leading that.
Thank you. It takes a lot of work behind the scenes, and Susie and Jim have really taken the reins on that one as far as bringing the other participants from the county, because it takes a lot of people from different fire companies to make that all happen.
Okay, let's go to citizen rep. Let's go to those that are zooming in. Melanie, anything to add or discuss?
No, I do not. Thank you.
And Susan?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
The other thing I would have is, it amazes me the amount of resources that we have in this community if we go out there and dig for them. And I would encourage everybody to use them wisely. Not overtax them if we don't have to, and keep everybody engaged as best we can.
I don't have anything to add right now, but I'll probably talk later on. Okay. Any public comment before we get back into the discussion, Dave's? Any public comment from people that are here? And if you have a comment, stand up, say your name and public comments.
I'd just like to say the gentleman in the back who didn't know my name, Mike Thornton, but I know why you remembered me. Why don't you tell everybody? When you guys,
a bunch of cookies.
that's right. The cookies came out. No one looked at the expiration date. Everything worked out.
Firefighters and food. It's amazing.
Thank you to all the hand-in-hand people for attending. This is really great to see here. Thank you. Okay, let's go back now to Chief. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about your memo?
I will, and I will try and stay off the bottom of the well here and get into the nitty-gritty, because everyone's read it. That's a member of the committee, and some things for us to consider. One of the things that I would like to talk about is back in June of 2021. The fire chiefs had a meeting, and we brought back to the emergency services after 3 hours of discussion that we wanted to have added to the agenda apparatus funding, and we wanted to talk about staffing, and we wanted to talk about the annual contributions to the fire company as far as financials go. And to date, since 2021, we have only spoke about it's been retermed human resource efforts. So there's a lot that's pretty much gone by the wayside. And I think it's time that you'll see in additional comments on the memo that I sent out for the May meeting. It's time that we revisit our plan forward. And how to make the East Lampeter Township volunteer emergency services last into the future. And it's been 8 years since we hammered out a plan. We have not been very good at sticking to that and in all aspects. Some of that has been prevalent tonight. with the apparatus. We've seen the plan that we have laid out as far as financials and how much the community or the township should put forth to those amounts has changed dramatically. The costs of equipment, we see it at the grocery store, we see it on the fire side too, tripled. We need to get these discussions in front of us. We talk about recruitment, retention. We focus a lot on the recruitment, but we don't talk about retention a lot. I know the county is working through the Lancaster County Fire Chiefs Association. For those of you who are aware and some who may not, is a reimbursement to anyone who volunteers. It'll be an online based where you submit just like your IRS form, and $250 is the number that they have stated right now for reimbursement. We have just recently been asked how many volunteers, administrative and firefighters, participate with each company. So this is moving forward. The county commissioners are going into it. So we're looking at $250 from the county to reimburse those who wish to volunteer via a volunteer firefighter. I guess somebody,
Is there any number of hours they need to volunteer to get 15 per year?
very likely, in my opinion.
Does that include training and firefighting? It's anything.
Yes. 15 hours, firefighters would be 15 hours. Very low number in my opinion, but I am not the one who is making the rules. So, you know, we need to talk about what's our plan forward. We need to have a comprehensive plan. Some of that led to our discussion that we had a few years ago on whether we get the DCED, Department of Environment, Department of Economic involved with our planning, or whether we do it ourselves, or whether we have Rob Associates, someone who knows about fire company planning. And we decided that we were going to tackle it ourselves, which we have not. We have not addressed that. So I hope tonight to persuade the committee to take some sort of action to break new ground. And I think we need to rehash our plan that we currently have in place. I mean, for every organization, you know, to have some kind of a structured plan. And I just feel that we're a little bit in the muddy water right now, muddy water. I'll just leave that there for a comment.
Dave, so among the chiefs, I mean, I think from what I've learned so far, being on this committee, you know, there is a level of expertise that comes from you guys, who most of you have been in the fire service, most of your adult lives and beyond. So when you look at the apparatus schedule, seems to be at the top of your list. Would you say that's at the top of your list?
The apparatus schedule and the refurbishment. Refurbishment was never part of the plan.
It's kind of, it seems like it's moved in because it, you know.
That is.
And I was happy that we seem to be able to adjust to that. Like it's not so hard and fast that we haven't been adjusted to that. That doesn't mean, you know, look at the schedule again. But is there agreement of the chiefs to look at the apparatus schedule and say, there's some fundamental flaws in it. We think we have some ideas that we should go. You can't do it in a whole committee. You'd have to have some kind of a task force committee of some kind to say, okay, some people are going to be working on this.
Yes.
But I'm asking you if the chiefs have.
Yeah, we had a meeting last week and we still all agree on these points, discussion points. And to go back to my suggestion back in 2021 is that we create subcommittees. And at that time, it was felt that we did not need to have subcommittees. I would like to bring that up again also for consideration. Subcommittees to address each of these 3 or more points for discussion and bring back and report to the Emergency Services Committee.
If the 4 chiefs are in agreement with that, I'll work with the 4 chiefs and we'll put together emails and that kind of thing out to the members to create the subcommittees. Now, the subcommittees will need to be more than just the people that are on the ESC. We have to dig down a little bit deeper into each of the fire companies. So identify those three categories that you,
Well, if you choose to handle that internally, or whether we need some involvement from Yuri Ozog's group or from Rob Associates.
I think you start with the fire chiefs and the committee first, and then they make the recommendation that we do it. But I mean, pretty quick, not like drag it out for a year.
So, okay, so what we had proposed 2 years ago, you would like to address now?
Yes.
Okay.
No, what I'm saying is, what are the three categories that we should have?
Just clarify what the three are, Dave. Because I see the apparatus one, when you say refurbishing an apparatus, to me, that seems the same.
So is apparatus funding,
Mm-hmm.
annual operating contribution, and staffing or human resources?
I think the staffing we need to call recruitment and retention. Like I know I heard you guys say, we can recruit all day long. It's we need to retain the people. We found at our station, it takes 3 years to train somebody to be a fireman. So I invest 3 years of time. I hope they stay 5 years. It's how do we keep the people staying longer that have the real world experience? I mean, I understand everyone's busy, everybody's getting older, I'm the same, but it's maintaining the people we have that are trained. And not necessarily, I can go recruit a school bus load of people, and don't take it wrong, they really don't do me any good for 3 years. Do you agree, Dave, that we get them trained to where they need?
That is true. With a lot of what I run into, I mean, our roster is 63 strong right now, but a lot of them, they want to volunteer on their own time. So it means that if I have to go to work in the morning, I'm not getting up in the middle of the night.
And that's where the retention comes in, how do we address that? So we talk about recruitment and retention. I think we need to focus on the retention. Recruitment, I mean, we're getting what, 1, 2 a month in the last 6 months. Great kids, I'll call them kids because they're juniors, but we have probably 8 to 10 senior members that I gotta go to work.
But if there were an incentive program,
I didn't want to throw the incentive word out there, but maybe that's something that committee can address, is how can we keep the interest level there? I'll keep it at that. I won't say how, but keep the involvement there of our seniors.
Well, and the other part of it is you're talking about two other things too. And one is, once they're there, that they're doing meaningful work. I happened to be at Lafayette on Saturday, and I saw the rescue unit go out once for a heart attack, come back, say it was false alarm. They turned around, came back. One of the people that was on that got onto a fire truck. A half hour later, 2 fire trucks go out to the Red Roof Inn for a false alarm. There were 4 people, 2 fire trucks that went out to a false alarm. That's a waste of time and it's a waste of resources. And there needs to be accountability for those kind of repetitive false alarms.
Well, I think that also falls back to the discussion that was back how many years ago about enforcing the false alarm codes. You know, start finding them.
so I mean, Lafayette doesn't create the emergencies come to us.
Oh, yeah.
on the radio.
Yeah.
So if somebody calls in and says somebody's having a heart attack, okay, and it turns out to be false because they're on drugs.
Mhm.
That's the nature of the game.
I think we need to identify what we want to do. Like, for example, tonight, there was a vehicle accident at 2500 block of Lincoln Highway. PSP only requested EMS, even though we had a head injury, but county followed the policy and dispatched the ambulance. Then there's a second ambulance that goes. 45 minutes into it, the police department will request the fire police. But I can tell you, we have no fire police. Like, you can hit us for fire police all day long and you're not going to get it. It's just the way it is. But, you know, we need to address how we're going to handle some of these calls.
The other side of the coin, and I know that you're all working on it, is getting the volunteers that are non-firefighting people. Part of the reason we were at Lafayette and Whitmer and We had a guy from Bronx that was with us, and I talked to Paul about, or hand in hand, is that our church does once a year, goes out and does work at the fire companies. And we were at both years this weekend, got some stuff done. Those people, when they got there and they saw the equipment, we talked about the replacement of your ladder, we talked about the replacement of your pumper, and they were appalled at how much this stuff cost. Hopefully that translates in them giving money when the donation comes around. Hopefully they continue to help, cut off corn, those kinds of things, send it out. So, I think that we need to get the community interested and involved. The thing that this community does goes to your point. The thing this community does that we don't give enough credit to fire companies for is the socialization that occurs when people are all going their different ways. When you have your pot pie thing, when you have your chicken barbecues, when you have those fundraisers that brings people in, that's for the good of the community. It's getting people there. It's the kids seeing the fire trucks and that kind of thing. That stuff. There's something good for the community that the fire companies do that is intangible. And if we can get the people that are sleeping when you guys are out there fighting fires in the middle of the night, we can get them to help in some way, whether it's weed whacking around or painting or doing whatever, then they get connected and they become part of it.
Did anybody submit an application from Victory Church?
I don't know. I think
So I think
no, but I think somebody, Howard talked to one person. So there may be one out of, I think there was 37 people there. Well, 7 of them were less than 12 years of age. So they wouldn't be putting in that. But
one thing about false alarms. False alarms is the term that's used very loosely, and all automatic alarms are our training teaches us this, are active fires until proven otherwise. Because we have gone to automatic fire alarms already when there's actually been fire. So when the resident wants to call us up and they say, can you cancel the fire departments and call them up? They don't give a valid reason. We still respond because we have an obligation to do that or we're liable. Now, once we get there and we determine that it is something caused it, there really are no false alarms, whether it's a spider crawling through the sensor, somebody hitting it with a power washer, somebody's cooking, somebody's burning incense, somebody's smoking, whatever it may be. Until we prove that it actually is a false alarm, it's an active fire.
Let's go back to the premise of the 3.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking. The last one really is on the agenda now.
Right.
We're calling it human resource. Dave's saying,
right.
How about you call it, recruitment? Now, I would say that recruitment, when I first came on, that was a big deal. That's why the middle school is starting a club. That's why they're doing the internship. But it has seemed like when we poll and ask, there's been some success. Obviously, Hand in Hand's had success, and you guys are saying, we're getting this and that. Now, retaining them, yeah, that's a little more sophisticated.
Like we talked, and I know you bring up, your fundraisers are great to bring the community. We've gotten more members since we stopped fundraising when we were fundraising. Because COVID hit, we were standstill. Our finance committee looked at it and said, do we need to fundraise anymore? The way we operate our department was decided, we don't need to fundraise anymore. We've gotten more people come in to run calls with us that are older because, I didn't want to come up and cook corn 7 nights a week. I didn't want to come up and cook chickens all week. I didn't want to come do corn soup all week. They come in, they train, they run calls, they go attend meetings, they go home. So to say you got to do more fundraising, bring people in, we actually found it we reversed it when we did away with fundraising. We had more people come in because if I joined the fire company, I didn't want to hear, hey, we cook corn 6 nights, we cook chicken this, and it's like I didn't be a short order clerk. I want to be a fireman, and we have more people coming in firemen now than what we did when we did.
I think we're saying the same thing. I'm saying non-firefighting people do the fundraising and help with that stuff.
That never happened. It was always the firefighters doing it. Every night that I said, I
understand that.
I really hope we don't get a fire call because, well, the one night we did have a fire call, we had a structure fire and we had to make a decision. Do we keep cooking corn or do we go to a fire? So
It's replacing the firefighters that are doing that kind of stuff with people that don't go out and fight the fires.
that's where if we have a committee, subcommittee that our viewpoint might not work for the three other companies. It has worked for us successfully, the BP people. And then the first thing you say is, I'm glad you don't do corn soup. When I was a kid, my dad made me come and help. Now I can be a fireman. So that's worked for us.
Yeah, there's a paid company in the county here that in their year-end report, they didn't report how many fire calls or how many automatic fire alarms they ran. They ran 60% fire activity and 40% community relations. But they're paid staff. So, I mean, it is very important to be out in the community. And in my year-end report from Lafayette last year, I reported we made 80 contacts with the community where we were out doing the blood drives. We were out doing National Night Out. We were out at the Mellingers Church. We were out at the Lutheran Church on Greenfield Road. Victory Church is another one, you know. So, I mean, we are out in the community attempting to drum up volunteers, yes, and let them know what we're all about. I mean, we have a video that we play. We have a recruitment video, and
Well, at the conference of the supervisors at Hershey, I went to as many of the fire groups as I could, and they're all having the same issues, but they point to culture as number one. I think I mentioned to you, Eric, back to the school days, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So what your culture is, that fits, you know, Ronks. Like, you know, when I did my tour of your place, I was taken with the efficiency of your whole fire organization, you know, and you guys have found a way to do that with the money from the township and good investments and things of that nature. You guys have that. You go to a fundraiser at hand, and it is definitely a community event. I mean, there are a lot of people there's families, there's a lot of people enjoying themselves. And of course, they have two anchor, very successful fundraisers. That's getting into money again. So the recruitment and retention, it's on the agenda. The practices that are going to retain members, certainly there's got to be recommended policies that are out there, procedures that are out there. We would be researching those. The committee, I guess, would be researching those.
Well, there's two different groups. There's the group that's the support group, and then there's the group that actually fights fires.
Right.
So the attraction and retention is the people that are actually fighting fires. So that they're doing, that's 90% of what they're doing is that kind of work. So when we talk about that committee, there's got to be kind of a split. There's the support people, and then there's the firefighting people. It's these people, the firefighting people that you want to attract and retain, that have to be trained. And that's where the $250 and things like that come into play. But what I think we need to do is get together with the fire chiefs and look at these three categories and get subcommittees that are active doing things. And that's what I plan to do with the four fire chiefs, get together and try to do that.
That's a big thing we discussed is doesn't always have to be the fire chiefs. But
Well, and that's right. That's
I
right.
said that
Yeah.
we always have discussion for this meeting.
Right.
And he said, you know, he and I both read Dave's thing. He said, if we have subcommittees, because I don't need to be on the committee.
Right.
If you don't need to be on the committee, we can put.
Right. Doesn't matter what it is.
Subject.
It's, you can have that, like, anybody who's been in the bureaucracy knows that. Are the first 2 points really the same committee? Is apparatus and the,
yes, the apparatus plan is definitely the
no,
same.
I would definitely put refurbishment and apparatus together. I mean apparatus and annual operating. It's money.
I think it is personally, Dave. I mean,
Isn't that that's one committee? So I would just suggest that.
Let's do that.
I think before we break down in subcommittees of the committees, we need to tackle the big things. And then if the committee meets and says, hey, there's a lot more topics here than what we realized, then you can break it down, like to say, stay out of the weeds, stay at 10,000 foot level and identify these problems, let them identify problems or other avenues we need to go, and then we can break it down from there.
Well, you guys that have been meeting can identify those things, and then we can take it to the committees, right? Just get it together
First.
Is that fair? Okay. we'll make strides for the next time and come back with something that we're doing. But again, I asked each of the fire companies, look at people within your organization that can serve on these committees that have.
Thing I was going to add to that is I think what we're really talking about is a finance committee more than anything else. I mean, we're talking about apparatus funding, we're talking about equipment funding, we're talking about township support. So personally, I would like to see some finance people on that, not just chiefs. I mean, I think
That's your choice. That's your
Exactly.
choice.
We have a finance committee that has really good people on it.
That's your choice. Who then serves on the committee for this group? If it's a finance committee for the ESC to report in, that could be anybody in your organization, somebody from your finance. We'll get it together. Okay, let's get it together for the next time. Report out.
What are the subcommittees?
With that,
We kicked around a lot of terms.
I think what talk about, because you said that the refurbishment, the apparatus and the annual operating contributions is all one committee, right? It's a finance committee.
And I think Paul is suggesting that is a finance committee.
Okay, so one committee, finance committee.
And then one for.
Well, I think you're saying, Eric, you want to talk to the chiefs.
Right.
And then we're coming together. It's a matter of, it's in the minutes. We understand. We come back to the next meeting and say, here's
the finance committee.
Here's some suggestions that the committee could vote on to bring to the Ralph and Tara, to bring to the supervisors to approve, or is that not necessary?
For the ESC to have subcommittees?
I don't think that's.
I don't have to.
I think we just do- I think if the 4 fire companies agree, these are the people that want to serve on the finance committee and can serve on the finance committee and can contribute.
Yeah.
That's the committee. And the next meeting we come to, here's the committee and this is what we're trying to do. But we'll need input from the fire chiefs about what topics and what things should we be talking about on that committee.
And you've opened that, and you've certainly
Going
opened.
back to this committee,
Right.
and Ralph, this is going to be a change to the overall structure of the plan going forward, so I think it would have to go before the supervisor.
No, it might not change that.
Well,
This is the ESC working on,
I think you're talking about something different, Dave. Ultimately, if the committee comes up with a new plan, that would come back to this
Right.
group to say, hey, we're gonna recommend this new plan to the board.
Right, yes.
So you've
Right.
got steps.
That's right.
to go through.
And then the second committee is the HR staffing, and there's 2 parts of it. There's the, how do you attract and retain people that actually go out and fight fires and.
Right, that's where I need to know the committees, because at our firehouse as the president, I pick who goes on the committees. not the-
Well, and that's your choice.
No, that's how we run it.
Yeah, right.
I appoint, so I need to know the committees when I go to the next meeting. I need to know what committees I'm appointing people to. So
But
there's
there's,
the finance, recruitment, retention.
yeah,
Are those the only 2 we're gonna
there's
start
only
with?
2 committees.
Okay.
And the recruitment retention is, there's 2 parts of that. There's the actual firefighters, and then there's the people that can help.
Right, and we can let
cut corners
that,
and do
we can let
that.
that committee steer that
Right.
ship when they go. So that way, when we go to our next company meeting, I can say we have 2 subcommittees and I need to appoint people to that.
Make sense? Steps forward?
Let me know what you want the agenda to look like
I will.
for the September meeting.
Yeah. By the way, Paul's going to chair that because I'll be out of town, but we'll work on that.
So you're going to get to me, I guess.
I will.
Results of the
Yep.
Conversation.
Yep.
You're gonna have with-
Yep. And Paul did serve as the secretary tonight, since a lot of this was hand in hand. He has a lot of the stuff, so minutes will come from Paul for tonight. Any final closing comments?
I'd like to make one comment. Dave, you mentioned about the $250 forever program. That came through Mason Brands. I happened to be at the chief meeting when we presented that. And I talked to him in the lobby before we left, and I said, hey, you're not keeping mine. And I've seen the email come through probably in the last 2 weeks. And honestly, I was a little frustrated when I read it, because when I look at it, it was kind of insult. Because for me to take that, go to leaders in the company and say, hey, I need to get paperwork to prove that this is who I am. And they have to prove it somehow, then I need to take it to my accountant. I'll spend a third of the money just trying to save the $250. It's like, it's really an insult. So I started replying to the email, you know what? So I think that you guys who got emails should probably be reaching out to them and say, hey, you're not shooting. Let's have 2,000, 5,000, pick a number. But for $250, it's still worth your time, take the CPA, it's cost you half of just do that side. And it's gonna be frustration right forward. And run the fire company and say, hey, this guy actually did put 15 hours. Just my viewpoint on that subject.
We do have a system of Lafayette where we track everyone's hours, so it should be pretty easy for us. As far as verifying who you are, who you say you are, I did not get any information on that. I will agree with you that 250 is a little low, but I think that the county commissioners would like to know how many people and how many $250 there actually are. If we're talking several $1 million, so it all adds up, I don't think they want to increase the amount until they know baseline on what they are getting themselves into.
We went through this 10 years ago when the state did that you got your $250, whatever it was, credit. This is what we're gonna do for the volunteers. And then they did, and they went, holy smokes, that cost us a lot of money. We lost out on a lot of money because, and I think the hours were 15 back then. So all we're on is a merry-go-round. It's made its way back around. We can say we've lived through this 10 years ago, went through this, and they're gonna say, yeah, 250 is great, here you go. And then they're gonna say, ooh, man, this cost us a lot of money. Let's forget about it for another 10 years till it comes around. So you're right. I don't know what the answer is. I hope that
Maybe there's a guy like Keith Griner, who's a CPA, that's also a state rep that knows something about this and do something about it. Streamline the process.
One question I have yet regarding the committees and the possible appointments at the next meeting. What's in, maybe something to think about between now and then, what's the thought process here from this committee in terms of the goal for those committees or the direction they're being given, or in other words, how much of that, how much structure will be there and guidance for those committees with specific things versus just saying you're a finance committee, you're a, whatever HR committee, go do your
I think
thing.
the chief's already talked about that. Let's just get that and get it started. It's not really difficult. Let's get the chiefs.
I mean, I would think the topics are going to be to study them, to collect the data you need to see, is the plan that we have right now sufficient? Does it need to be improved? Are we behind the times, ahead of the times? How does that look? What are the trends? Volunteer companies that are starting to pay people or move to pay or consolidate. They talked about that at the conference quite a bit, people that were consolidating and things of that nature. So, and then your recommendations to the committee for a vote would certainly come from that, and then to the major change to the supervisors too.
I think what we need to do is go back to our fire companies. So like Paul, I know you guys have a finance committee. We have a finance committee. Like I said, nothing against the fire chiefs, but they don't run everything.
No.
You guys determine, talk to your finance committees and say, hey, what are our ideas? We'll go back to our finance committee. What are our ideas? Each fire company can say, hey, we're starting a finance committee. What would you guys as a finance committee like to discuss or talk about?
No, that's good.
And even if the first meeting is brainstorming, it's like throw everything on the
That's
table.
good. I was just trying to clarify. My concern was when you create a committee, if there's not a somewhat defined purpose for that committee, it can, and maybe that's what we want, is it can really go off in some pretty wild bunny trails. And I was just kind of my question to clarify how much.
I think the information exists in, like you said, an already existing structure.
I mean, recruitment retention is pretty easy. Retention and recruitment, because we're all doing recruitment pretty hard here, is get a joint group effort between the board and then the finance. What's working, what's not working for all this. Do we need to change the way we
Give a step forward. Yeah.
Eric, to Dave's point, and I'm not sure you guys were all hearing it or not. If you fail to do what he is describing, we're continuing down the same path we have for years of relying on the chiefs to do this stuff, where each of the companies has resources that this committee never falls upon, other than the, you know, whatever chief can bring back from it. Where this is actually adding resources, and I think that this is a standout
Yeah.
time and place for this organization, because to say I'm chiefs, if you were talking tactical, that's fine. But why would people be saying, I want to get together with your treasurer, your key financial person, if that's what you're getting?
I'm not saying that the chiefs to do all this stuff. I'm saying I go to the chiefs and say, who on your finance committee, what two people on your finance committee should be looking at finances? Same with them. The chiefs, I think we as a committee have to go through the chiefs just as to
Say, we will go around the chief. Always start with.
Yeah.
Speak, chief, or and need to go to the president because he is in charge of our administrative work.
Yeah, the way ours is set up, anything through this committee goes through, not the fire chief.
well, that's kind of what it meant, is the people that are on this committee is
So
what
if you went to our fire chief, he would
No.
say, you need to go through Dave because he is been appointed by the fire company.
I usually,
To represent and speak on behalf of Rungs Fire Company.
Well, that's an excellent point.
yeah, these are the four people that I would be going to say who should be on the finance committee.
But it's the same point.
Right.
You gotta go to a person who's in that.
I know I said chiefs.
Yeah, and I did too. Yeah.
Okay.
And I did
Sure, what all these
You're not
guys.
the same thing. I'm just saying
Yeah,
that.
right. No, I didn't mean,
I have specific meaning.
right, I understand, and I thank you for correcting that and bringing it up. Okay. Anything else? Thank you. That was good. Okay, I guess I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
That's great. Really the